How do I want this camera angle? There we go. Should I change my shirt? This is how I show up. This is like what I always wear. I just wear t-shirts. It's fine. I don't have to look good for YouTube. Anyways, I'm back after what feels like forever. This shit is not easy to fit into my schedule, I'm not gonna lie. But I have some really cool regressions I want to share with you. And I've been teasing this one on Instagram forever. I think it's about time I talk about it. So the regression I want to talk about today was not actually a past life regression. This was someone who believed she had had an abduction experience. So an alien abduction, cool shit, right? And so we were kind of looking to experiment and see if we could retrieve those lost memories. I had never done this before. I kind of just threw it out in my Instagram story because this is something I always knew I wanted to try to explore. So I put it in my Instagram story to see if anyone thought they had a potential abduction experience. Oh, I said that weirdly. So I put it in my Instagram story to see if anyone had thought that they had a potential abduction experience. Why can't I say that word? I put it out in my Instagram. Oh my God. So I put it out in my Instagram story to see if anyone thought that they had a potential abduction experience. And I found someone. So her circumstances are actually a little bit different than maybe someone else who has had an abduction experience. If you're someone who has studied these things, usually what happens when someone has a case where they think they've been abducted, it's something where they have missing time. They ended up somewhere and they don't know how they got there. They saw a strange light and that's all they remember. It's usually something like that. Usually the person will have no conscious memories of something happening. They just know that something weird happened. So that's like your typical scenario when it comes to these things. The girl I worked with was a little bit different, where she actually had some conscious memories of what had happened. And I'm actually going to play the audio clip for you guys. I changed her voice though, so you won't know who it is.
Okay. Aliens, tell me what you remember.
So I feel like I kept having a recurring, I thought it was just like a dream or like thoughts that would happen like at night. And it definitely happened multiple times, maybe even over the course of like, I want to say 6 to 9 months, maybe a year. I think it was around when I was like 8 or 9, but I remember in the dream, um, I feel like they were grays. I feel like they were very like devoid of emotion, kind of beings. I never felt like I was like in harm, but it was definitely like weird vibes. I was in like a room that sort of seemed like a sterile white, like with bright lights, like medical kind of room. And it's like we were on like stainless steel like examination tables, and like I definitely think I was naked, but it was definitely like observation kind of shit, like, and there were other people there, but I don't remember anything necessarily like happening. um I just remember thinking it was weird, and I'm pretty sure like I couldn't move. I felt like I was like just like I could just see, and I felt like very much like again, like asleep, but like half asleep, but they made me feel like it was just like thoughts in my head. I almost felt like I was making it up, but I know I wasn't. And then I literally ceased to remember any of this shit until like literally just a few months ago.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, like it just completely like left my awareness.
Something weird also happened when I was doing the induction for this client. I was only partway through the induction, and all of a sudden, she blurts out something very interesting, which I will play you a clip of right now.
And now you may place your hands in any position in which they are comfortable and just relax again. And we will begin.
Dolores Cannon's here. Also, they want me to tell you that the government was involved.
So that was weird and unexpected, but we kept going along and I trusted that whatever needed to come up about that would come up. So I actually started her with a normal past life regression. I wanted to get her nice and deep into relaxation before we even touched the alien stuff. I'm not going to get into her past life, although it was quite interesting. I might save it for another video, but I do want to talk about some things that I think will be relevant. She had a very unique style when I put her under regression that I don't see with everyone that I work with. It was almost as if when she went to her past life, she was immediately channeling other beings. Whereas normally I'll take someone to a past life and they're just telling me step by step what they're doing in that life. Almost immediately, instead of focusing on what was happening in that lifetime, she starts channeling these spirit guides that were appearing for her, these elementals. And she starts feeding me information about Stonehenge. She starts telling me about ley lines, about grid workers. So there was like a lot of cool information that was just coming through because she was just so psychically in tune and channeling within this regression. What was also interesting is this lifetime that she experienced had a lot to do with government corruption. There was like this big theme of power hungry leaders and doing things to control and instill fear in the masses. After this past life, I took her to this current lifetime and I moved her to the time when these experiences began. She sees herself as a younger girl and she's in her bedroom and she actually starts recalling memories like how she was cleaning her rock collection at the time. It was before dinner. She'd eventually go downstairs to eat dinner, and then later she'd come up and get ready for bed. She then goes to bed, but she feels like basically as soon as she goes to bed, all of a sudden she's elsewhere and she didn't remember how she got there. It was almost like instantaneous. And she sees herself in this white sterile room that she recalled before. However, she's kind of confused where it's located. She originally thought it was a craft, but she was like, you know what? I don't even know if I'm in a craft right now. I just know I'm in a room. She thought potentially she was in some type of deep underground military base, but she wasn't really sure. She described it as being white, very sterile, had huge bright lights. There were stainless steel looking tables, and she also wasn't alone. There were other people there as well. Immediately after describing the room that she was in and noticing that there were other people there who were on tables, by the way, she also describes that she was surrounded by ugly beings. That's how she described them. I asked her what these ugly beings are doing, and she says that they're just observing. It's almost like they're doing something to them, but they're just using their mental energy. She said that they were able to control things with their mind and that they didn't really have to physically do anything. I asked her what they are observing, and this is what she said. They are observing the human body, but there's some connection with the mind. I just heard light beings, but as it pertains to humans. I asked her if she could further elaborate on this, and she starts describing like your auric field is what she says, or like your light being in your human body, which I assume she means like your consciousness or your soul. However, the words she used were auric field and your light being in your body. She then had a moment of realization where she pauses and then she goes, I don't think what they're doing is ethical. And then she continues by saying, and the government is involved. And she starts describing how it's essentially this process where they are detaching one's light being from the body. But I asked her to see why they were doing this. And this is what she says, because they're fucking sick and twisted, like really unethical, like scrambling kind of shit. And then she says, something about only people that are really compromised, like it wouldn't work for me, is what they were saying. So I asked her to explain further, and she said that she was too hyper aware, which is why it wouldn't work for her, and something about a block being put on her. So I asked, what do you mean by this block? And she says that her spirit guides or some sort of energy put a block on her so that she would stay aware. She tries explaining this block to me, but basically had trouble and said that her human mind couldn't comprehend it, but it's some weird shit. Essentially, what she was getting at is that there was some block that made her very aware of what was happening, and her awareness somehow stopped them from doing what they were going to do. I'm curious what the purpose of their experiments are, so I'm asking her more details about that. She said they're doing a bunch of different things, and it really just feels like very sick science experiments. She also sees cows there, and they look mutilated. And she said it feels like they're doing something interspecies related with them. What's interesting though is even though she's describing to me these sick experiments and she's saying it's unethical, she said she really didn't feel in danger the whole time she was there. It's almost as if she felt that she was protected and nothing bad was going to happen to her. She then further elaborates on the government's involvement on this. She goes, and the government is totally in on whatever these minion fucks are doing. By the way, the minion fucks are the ugly beings she mentioned earlier in the regression. She's calling them minions because she felt like they were being directed by something else. It kind of felt like they were doing the work for someone else as like a minion would. So she goes, the government's totally in on whatever these minion fucks are doing, or they were involved. I feel like it's not happening anymore. So I'm wondering, how is the government involved? Are they just like allowing this to happen, or are they the ones physically doing this? And she explains that they were gathering research through this process too. Essentially, they were allowing these beings, these minions, ugly beings, whoever was operating them, they were allowing them to do these weird bodily experiments in exchange for information about energy and consciousness. It was kind of like a trade deal. All of a sudden, my client has this look of disgust on her face and just says, ew. So I asked her what she's seeing, and she's describing what she would call like soul harvesting or soul scalping. She was seeing like mangled bodies and guts and like organic matter from humans. And she was describing that these ET beings don't need food like they do on Earth. They just need the energy as fuel, or the souls as fuel. And then they were discarding the organic matter or the bodies. So I asked her to explain a little bit more about what she's saying about these beings eating energy or consuming energy. And she's saying that it's souls that have been compromised. So I'm like, what do you mean by that? What does that mean? And once again, she's disgusted and she's saying, ew. So she's reacting to something she's seeing. And then she says, it's going to be hard to get the souls back, to connect them back to source energy, like they're trapped. Does that make sense? So I say, yeah, but when you say it's hard for them to get back to source energy, where are these souls right now? Are they actually trapped somewhere? Are they able to reincarnate again? And she says, no. It's like they're being encapsulated, or they have been for a long time. She then said, I feel like this is being course corrected now, but for a long time, it's like they're showing me that weird room in Beetlejuice where there's like lost souls. It's kind of like that, but their souls are like being used, or they were energetically being used. So I clarified, are they being used for energy and nourishment? And she said, yes, and entertainment. It's entertaining for these guys. At one point, she also mentions the idea of there potentially being reptilian beings above these gray minion ugly beings that she was describing earlier. She wasn't entirely sure if they were reptilian, but she kept going back to that word every time she spoke about them. She also explains how they operate these gray ugly minion beings. She said it's almost like these gray beings don't have a consciousness. They were like grown in a lab. So then I asked her if it's just these gray minion ugly beings there and the reptilians, or if there's any other being there. And she actually said she's aware of something that's operating even above the reptilians. It wasn't located in the room that she was in. It was located somewhere off far away, but it was essentially sending orders to these reptilian beings. And how she described it was just darkness, pure darkness. She said it's like obsidian, dark, glossy matter. At this point, I actually have her float above the room that she's in because if you remember at the beginning, she wasn't sure if she was on a craft or if she was on Earth. So I have her float above the place that she's in, and she does see that she is, in fact, in outer space. However, there was almost like something concealing the appearance of the ship, like a cloud of gas or something, which is a shame because I've actually had a regression where very similar things came up. That person was able to describe the craft to me. So it would have been kind of cool if I can compare descriptions of the craft they were in, since the themes they're bringing up are so similar. However, she really wasn't able to see the craft. All she saw is that it was hidden by this gaseous substance. I then had her return to her bedroom after the experience ended, and she became very aware of the fact that the beings that returned her were worried. They basically tried to inject something into her, which she described as less like a substance and more like an energy. And the purpose of this injection would be to wipe her memory clean. What made these beings panicked was that her memory was not going away. They were frantic that she observed something that she shouldn't have observed. At the end of these sessions, I always contact the client's higher self. This is a part of the session where we can get clarity on anything that might have been confusing within the actual regression itself. One of the things her higher self explained that I thought was kind of cool was that she was actually a very purposeful person in this whole experience. Her soul's role in being a participant in this was to basically be a messenger to these beings to show them that you can't fuck with everyone. There are some people that are going to retain the memories and that are going to be a witness to what you're doing, and you can't keep getting away with this. Her higher self also explained to her that it was purposeful for her to see this experience as well as a past life that she went into, to see that it's very important to question authority. And now more than ever, we really need to be doing this. I also asked her higher self if this is still going on and if this is something we need to worry about, specifically what was going on the craft that my client experienced. She said it's being infiltrated now and that it's being broken up by a certain alliance. However, when I asked who this alliance was, she paused and said, I'm not allowed to know that. I then asked her higher self if it has any final messages for humanity in general. And this is what her higher self responded. You can't lay down. You have to pay attention. You have to keep fighting. Turn off the TV. Quit being fooled by the facade of the church and the state. It's not what you think it is. The good that you're searching for is inside of you and in nature already. No one's going to save you or take care of you like the church or the government. So that's about all we uncovered during this experience. It was very cool and very new for me. I have so many other cool stories lined up that I can't wait to share on YouTube. I'll try to get them out faster, but other than that, let me know what you thought in the comments below.
There's some fucking sick shit that's been happening on this fucking planet.